Guys, my name's Andrew, and today I'm going to be showing you guys how to create your very own weather map using URLSession, JSONDecoder, and CoreLocation. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be getting JSON data from the Open Weather Map API, parsing that data, and then I will show you guys how to get your current location, get the data for your current location and display it on your screen in a nice little format. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and get started by opening up Xcode. We are going to create a new Xcode project, and this is going to be a single view application. Click next, name this whatever you like. I'm going to name mine real time cap lock is on weather app. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to kind of find the URL that I need, which is usually for me like one of the hardest parts is finding the correct URL that I want to use, or where my JSON is stored. So I'm going to go to the Open Weather Map API. And I wanted to show you guys how to use the 16-day daily forecast, but that is part of the paid plan. So I'm going to stick with this 5-day, 3-hour forecast. We're not going to be using all the data, but I'm going to show you how to bring it in and kind of give you some tips on what you should expect from this current API. So I'm going to click on the documentation. And I want this by geographical coordinates. You could do by city ID, but I'm not sure what the ID is. City name works fine as well. You're just going to have to do some more robust checking. I kind of just want the data for my current location. So I'm just going to do it with my geographic coordinates. So if you click on this and it's not formatted like this, can I turn it off? I don't know. Anyway, I recommend going and getting this JSON view. It's part of the Google Chrome store, and it just kind of like makes your JSON data all nice and pretty like this, and you can condense it and expand it as you like. It's really nice. If not, don't do it, I guess. But if you're going to be working with API and JSON, it's definitely really helpful to have as a tool. So let's go ahead and get started. This is our API, and I kind of want to change some data and see if I can get like maybe a different city or maybe some different weather data. So that was an example of the API call, but you'll see the real API call starts with this API Open Weather Map, and then you'll see here that we have samples. So I'm going to go ahead and change samples to API, try to change the latitude and longitude. And you'll notice that we get this error said invalid API key. So let's go ahead and get our API key. To get an API key for this, all you have to do is sign up. So click sign up. I'm already signed up, so I already have an account. But once you first sign up, you should get put to this screen anyway. So you're going to go over here to API keys, and here's going to be your first default key. Just as a warning, you want to keep this API key as private as possible. I'm only showing you guys for the purpose of this tutorial, but you want to keep this extremely private, otherwise people are able to kind of like hack into your application, hack into your things, which nobody likes. So I'm just gonna copy this API key, and I notice like in this URL that I have this app ID, which kind of is like a huge red flag, like, oh, this is gonna be my API key. So I'm gonna paste that in here, and now we get our JSON. So this is pretty nifty. This is all the stuff, and let's see here if our city changed, which it did. Now we're in Lautai. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but cool stuff. So now we can actually kind of get started with Xcode. So let's go ahead and go back into our project. I'm going to go into, this is going to be Habit app. just because we're going to have to flash it to our phone to get an actual current location. You don't have to because you can simulate the location, but I like to because it seems a little more real world testy. But I'm going to create some new groups real quick. This one is going to be my helper group. This one is going to be my controller group. This one is going to be my view group. And this one is going to be my model group. And then in my helper group, right off the bat, I'm going to create a new file in here. It's going to be a Swift file. And this is going to be called constants. And this is where I'm going to store the foundation for my URL. So let's see what this URL is. So the only things that I'm going to be changing are this latitude and this longitude. These need to be dynamic, but everything else is pretty static for the moment. So before this 45 in my API, I'm going to take this and I'm going to say let base underscore URL equal. This needs to be a string of what I just copied. I'm going to say let lawn URL. This is just going to be the extension. So then after we input this, we're going to need to input this and lawn equals, because we want to match this URL exactly as is. And then I'm going to say my API key. And this is going to equal my API key. And notice how I said we want to keep this as private as we can. So I'm going to make this a private variable as well. So we only have access to it in this file. And I'm going to end it with my app ID URL. And this is going to equal and app ID equals, and then this is going to be plus my API key. So now we have this full-on extension at the end, but we only have access to this API key in this class. And if you guys know a better way of doing this, keeping it more private, feel free to let me know down in the comments below. This is just my little workaround for right now. So cool. So now we kind of have our whole URL right in our constants, except for our latitude and our longitude, which we will get to in momentarily. So now we kind of want to start thinking about how we're gonna start parsing the data and access this URL. So I'm going to go into this. I'm going to I'm going to come into this model. I'm going to create a new file. This is going to be of type forecast. And I'm just going to get the simplest, most easiest thing that I can get from this data, which this doesn't look that simple, neither does this, but this is just a string, this is just a double, this is just an int. So probably one of these things, just to make sure I'm actually hitting the URL correctly at first. So I'm going to start with this COD. And so this is going to be my class of forecast. This is going to be of type codable, because we're going to need to use JSONDecoder. And I'm going to say let COD of type string for right now. And you'll notice that this matches up exactly with what I typed in. For the purpose of our tutorial, be absolutely positive that whatever you type in matches up with what's in here. If not, you're not gonna be parsing the data correctly, and you're gonna keep on getting the same error that's gonna say invalid format, or data parsed in bad format, or something along those lines. So there's ways to go around it using coding keys, and but I don't really want to get into that right now. I just want to show you the basics of pulling data from JSON. So make sure you name it exactly the same as I did, or as it is in the API. So now that we have this string, let's see how we're gonna pull it. So I'm gonna go back to my helper group. I'm gonna create a new file, and this is going to be called forecast helper. And I'm going to say class forecast helper. And I'm going to want let static let shared equals forecast helper. And the reason we're doing this is so we don't have to instantiate our forecast helper every time, and we're going to have our data centralized locally at one place in our code. And because we're going to keep an instance of this forecast, and every time we're going to initialize this, that's going to get reset, which we do not want. So we're going to create this static instance, the shared instance of forecast helper, so we don't have to keep on initializing this class. Okay, so we're going to create a function called get weather data, and we want to pass in a latitude, which is of type double, and a longitude, which is also of type double. And here we're going to say we're going to turn our constants into an actual URL string. So I'm going to say let URL string equals base URL plus string interpolation to do lat plus our lon URL plus again this lon plus our app ID URL. And now we want to actually make this a URL. So you can initialize a URL from a string, but that returns an optional type. So we are going to safely unwrap this with our guard. So this is going to be guard let URL equals URL of. So you'll see here on the left right here, this is a URL optional. So we want we don't want the optional. So we're going to safely unwrap this from our URL string. Else we're just going to return out of this function. So now that we have our URL, we can go ahead and get started with our URL session. Oops. .share.data task with URL. I didn't want that one. I want the one with the completion handler. So I want the one with URL and this completion handler. Our URL is going to be the URL we just created. Our completion handler, you're going to hit enter on that, and we're going to type in data. I'm not too interested in our response, so I'll just throw in a wildcard, and then we'll name our error appropriately. So first thing I'm going to do is check against the error. So I'm going to say if let error equals error, print error.localize description, and return out of the function. Next, our data is an optional, which I want to unwrap this as well. So I'm going to say guard let data equals data, else return. Okay, and then we want to parse this data. So we're going to do a do and a catch, and I'll let you know why we're doing a do catch at the moment in a moment. So I'm going to print error.localize description, and just as clarification, this error is not the same as this error. Catch blocks have their own errors already implemented, which you can call. So we're just going to print that, or we're going to return. Here we're going to do let forecast equals JSON decoder. We're going to instantiate it .decode. And you see this at the end, throws. Whenever something throws, you're going to have to check against that, either with the guard or with the do catch. I'm just doing do catch for simplicity right now. So we're going to call this decode. What we are going to want to do also is say try before this. And here our type is going to be our forecast .self. and our data is going to be our data that we just unwrapped. So let's go ahead and print our forecast dot COD to see if we actually got our data back. So one thing that I noticed that I didn't do is that you always want to call .resume on this URL session, because if you don't call that, it's never going to get run. So you're never going to actually execute that block of code. So here I'm just going to say at the end of my curly brace .resume, and we should be all set, and we should be getting this, but we're not calling this function anywhere. So let's go over to our view controller, and then in our view did load, we're going to say forecast helper dot shared, which is our shared instance, dot get weather data, and then I'm just going to pass in 30 and 40, and let's see if we get what we were kind of searching for, which is that COD. And then if I come here and I change this to, let's see here, 30 and 40. So I should be getting 200. My internet seems kind of slow at the moment, so here we go. And oh no, we couldn't get it because of some error, and it says could not be loaded because of the app transport security policy requires use of secure connection. So it's kind of a weird error to get, but the fix for it is to go to your info.plist, click plus, click plus here, and this is going to be app transport security settings. Hit enter, click this little down arrow, click here, and we want to do allow arbitrary loads, and we want to change this to yes. So let's go ahead and run it again, and this time we should be getting our 200 response. Bang. So we got that. Now let's kind of see like what else we might want from this. So I want the city, and then outside of the city I only need this name. But you'll notice like this curly brace, so this was easy because this is a string, but this one is like a bunch of stuff, and this is actually a string of any dictionary. So whenever you kind of see this curly brace, that's a huge telltale sign that I'm going to need another object. So I'm going to come over here into my model. I'm going to do command N. I'm going to have a city object, and I'm going to say let city, oh, not let, this is going to be class of city, and then inside my city I can get this ID, this name, coordinates, country, population. I'm really only interested in the name and the country right now, so I'm just going to say let name of type string, let country of type string. And you notice how they match exactly how they are here in this database. So, and this should be of type codable. And then we'll go back to our forecast, and then we're going to say let city of type city. And we'll run back to our helper, and then here, if we did everything correctly, we should be able to say forecast. Hold on, let's just build it so we can actually access the property. We'll say let forecast dot city dot name. So now we should be getting our city name, which in this case is Sakaka, which is there, which is pretty cool. And then here, if we do our country, we should be getting the correct country as well. I'm not sure what country that is actually. SA. Cool. No, it's not South America, but all right. So we are getting our data for our city correctly, which is awesome. Now let's see how we want to grab maybe here. I'll come back to this, but now let's see how we kind of want to grab our weather data, so if I open this up, you'll notice that this is an array of sorts, and then inside this array, there's a new object, and then inside this new object I have this date, which is a time interval. I have another new object in main, which holds all my temperatures, and I have another new object in weather, which is an array as well and holds a new object as well, and so on and so forth. These are kind of like the only things I'm really interested in, maybe not even the date so much, because we're only going to be working with the first one, but we're going to pull in all the we're going to pull in everything from this. So there's 40 of these objects. We're only going to be working with the first one, the most relevant one. But so let's go ahead and see how we're going to go about this. So I'm going to create a new model. It's going to be a new Swift file of type day. And I'm just going to double click on this so I can have it side by side with my JSON. So let's see here. I'm going to say class day of type codable. And then in my day, I'm going to say let dt of type double. I'm going to say let main of type something. So this is going to be a new object, hence these curly braces. So I'm going to say let class temp is going to be codable as well. And then from here I want let temp of type double, let temp underscore min of type dictionary, no, of type double, let temp underscore max of type double, and that's all I really want from this temp. And you notice this isn't an array, so this is going to be of type temp. And then here we also want this weather, so I'm going to say let weather, and this is going to be an array of some sorts. So let's see here. I'm going to say class weather is going to be codable as well. And then let's see here. From here I want my main. So let main, this is going to be a string. Let description, this is going to be a string as well. And that's kind of all I really need from this weather. So if we pass in our weather here, we've kind of matched everything that we need from this list in a sense. So here's our first day, we're getting this date, we're getting something from this main object, which is going to be these temperatures, and then we are also getting this whole weather object ordeal and working with whatever's inside there. So if we go back to our forecast.swift, this is kind of where everything's happening. We're going to say let list, because that's what it's named here. And I'm actually going to put this before city, just because that's how it's structured over there. I don't think it should matter. But you'll notice right now that, yeah, this is a day, but the whole list is an array of days. So we have to make sure that we notice that, because if we don't, like I said, you're going to be parsing in the data incorrectly. So this is going to be an array of type day. And right now it should be set. We don't need the COD anymore. And we can come up to our forecast helper and we'll just build it. And then here I should be able to say list dot first dot main dot temp. So let's go ahead and see if that returns us what we're hoping it does, which here we are, 283.5199999.52. So we're getting what we want. So we're parsing this data correctly. If I do weather dot first dot main, we should be seeing rain. So yeah, cool. So we're getting in our data, but we're not really persisting to anything, or we're not really doing anything with it. So variable var forecast equals, and this is going to be of type forecast. And let's set forecast equal to this forecast. Call this loaded forecast. Why isn't this? Type forecast. Okay, cool. All right, so now that we have our variable forecast, we can set that variable, and let's say self.forecast equals our loaded forecast. Bang. So now we're kind of persisting our data somewhere, and we have a way to access it. Make these all optionals. We're gonna have some. Okay, so we succeeded. So let's go into our view controller, and let me just clarify what I did there. So in our forecast helper, I created this optional type of. I created this new variable of forecast, and it's of. It's either going to be forecast or no, so it's an optional. And then here, I'm just setting that variable to my forecast, and we got errors in our forecast model, and it was basically just telling us like, hey, these are going to need to be optional values as well, since that's how you're saving it, I think is what's going on. Either way, the fix was to add question marks to the end of these, make these both optional, which is not too big of a deal. So now that we have that, let's see what we can do in our, let's go set up our storyboard. So I'm just going to get some labels. What do I want to display? I want to display city name. Here you can come onto this label, click Command equal, and it'll resize it for you. Command D, maybe like temp, make these all centered. Maybe here temp, min and max. What else? Main, weather, and then here maybe like weather description. Weather descript. Okay, so I'm just gonna select all of these and stick them all in a stack view. Constrain my stack view to 0, 0, 0, 0, and then I'm gonna fill it equally. And nice. So I'm going to open up the assistant editor, and I'm just going to drag and drop these things. It's going to be city. This is going to be temp. There's going to be temp, min, max. There's going to be our main. this is going to be our description. So one thing that we're going to encounter is that we're going to face some latency. We don't really know when our data is going to come back. So we're going to add a completion handler into our application, into our function. So this is going to be completion. This is going to be at escaping. And we're going to have this boolean called success. Type bool, and this is going to return void. You could do this, or you could actually type out void, but I like this for simplicity. So this completion handler, let's see what we want. So here we're going to return our completion handler. Here we don't really need to return this completion handler, just because as it's totally outside of a URL, it doesn't even matter. But here, if we don't have our data, even here in our error, we're going to want to say completion, and we're going to want to pass in false because it did not succeed. Completion of false. Again, completion of, let's see here, this is false. Here is going to be our completion of true. So basically what this completion handler is allowing us to do is to kind of, we have a function, and our function is going to be based off this condition, this success condition, and this is where this success condition, this is what this success condition is going to be. So if we have an error, it's going to be false. If we don't get our data, it's going to be false. If we load in our data and it decoded for us, then it's going to be true. Otherwise, it's going to be false. So you're going to kind of be able to see what this looks like in our other controller, because we're going to get pretty into it here momentarily. Here we're going to do my description, or weather description. And before I forget, I need to go into my storyboard, and I'll come here, delete this, go to my assistant editor, and then just reconnect it. Otherwise you're going to throw an error. But here we're going to do something like this. So we're going to say our forecast helper dot shared dot get weather data. So we're going to say lat, we're gonna 30, 40 completion. So we're going to hit enter. Let me just redo that for you guys. So we're going to do forecast helper dot shared dot get weather data. So now you see we have three parameters. We have this latitude, this longitude, and then this double, which this completion, which looks like a function of some sort. So here I'm just going to pass in 30, 40. I'm going to come to my completion. I'm going to hit enter. And you'll notice it's kind of like what we're just doing with the data task. It's just custom to us, to our needs. So here my boolean is going to be called success. And I'm going to say if success, so this is when our actual object is set. So I'm going to say print forecast helper dot shared dot forecast dot city dot name. Else I can just print failed to load in data. So let's see what this is looking like. Should be pretty nifty. Bang. So now you see we're loading in our data on this optional rather than this field, right? Which is pretty nice, because this is just checking to see like, hey, did you get the data back? Yes, I did. Cool. Then I can actually execute this. Did you get the data back? No, but I got this warning. I had a problem getting the data, and so on and so forth. And you can get really creative with these. You can pass in errors, and you can kind of like postpone just all your Firebase completion handlers and a bunch of other completion handlers using this. You can just kind of make that reference only one time and just keep on passing in the given completion handler, which we might get into in some other videos. But yeah, let's get back to business. So right now we're kind of done with our models. We're pulling in the data. We got our completion handler. Now we need our current location to call this data off of. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to import CoreLocation, right? And I know that I need this delegate, CL location manager delegate. And here I'm going to say let's location manager equals CL location manager. And in this, I'm going to cut this out, but I'm going to say let's location manager dot request always authorization, location manager dot request when in use authorization. If location manager dot let's see here dot what was it, CL location dot location services enabled. We say location manager dot delegate equals self, location manager dot desired accuracy equals KCL 10 kilometers, nearest 10 meters, right? Yep, nearest 10 meters. And we're gonna say location manager dot start updating location. So so now that we're updating our location, we're going to kind of be getting our latitude and longitude. So let's see how we're going to get that. So it's going to be part of this delegate function. So we're going to say it's called did start updating. I'm just type in location manager and you'll see a bunch of these functions. Did update locations. So here I'm gonna say let location equals locations dot first dot coordinate, and I'm going to print out my location dot latitude. Here I'm going to say a guard let just to safely unwrap it. Else we're going to return. And the reason I knew to put first here is because you'll notice that this is an array of CL location, and I only really need one of these objects, and the first one should be fine. So now I have this latitude, and I can also print my location dot longitude. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this, and I'm actually going to run this on my phone. Actually, no, I'm not, because I don't have my charger. But before, you'll see we get this error. So NS location always and when in usage description. So we're going to, this has always been super weird for me in Swift 4, but for some reason you have to add all three of these for it to work, at least in my case, like in my experience. So I'm going to come to my plist. I'm going to say privacy, location always. I'm going to start with when in usage description. Here I'm just going to type in whatever, privacy, location always in usage description. And then I need my last one, which is privacy, location always, and when in usage description. So let's run this. I'm going to simulate this in San Francisco. And you'll notice that this is the one that actually gets printed out, which is nice to know. But I'm going to say only while using the app. So we get our current location, right? Which is nice, which is right now in San Francisco. So you see, kind of did it twice. I think if you're on your phone, it does it more. But where am I going? In this view controller, we're going to also want to say our location manager should stop updating locations, because we only need to get this one time. But now that we have our latitude and our longitude, we can do our forecast helper .share .get weather data, and then this is going to be our location .latitude, our location .longitude, and then our completion, which hit enter on this will pass in success. If success, print our forecast helper .forecast, .shared .forecast .city .name. Else we're going to print couldn't get data. So we're gonna run it, and we should see San Francisco. Bang, nice. So everything is working pretty well right now, and I think all that's really left to do is to kind of stick the data into these labels. So let's see here. I'm gonna want this function. I'm gonna create a custom function. It's gonna be called update. I'm gonna call it update views, and this is going to take in a forecast of type forecast optional. And I'm going to say guard let forecast equals forecast, else we're going to return out of here. And then here I'm going to say city, is that what we called it? Yeah, city.text equals forecast.city.name. City, nope, and then next we have our temp label, so we'll say temp.text equals forecast.list.first.temp. This is main, right? .temp. We'll say, what is it, temp min max .text equals, we'll do some string interpolation, so we'll say there's going to be forecast list first main temp min. So here we're going to say min. This is going to be the max, and I'm just going to copy and paste this just to save some time, and this is going to be temp max. Let's see what else. We have our main weather description, so we're going to say main.text equals forecast list first weather main. no, dot first, sorry, dot main. And here we're going to say, what did I call it? Weather description dot text equals, maybe unwrap these since they're going to be optionals. Forecast dot list dot first dot weather dot first dot description. And here if we're gonna I'm not too worried about that right now. So we're gonna take our forecast that we have and we're gonna say update views and we're going to update with our forecast helper dot shared dot forecast. So here I just need to add self. So let's see if this works. And if we did everything correctly, it should. So you'll notice that we kind of get this little purple error, which means that we're trying to update well and we're not quite ready. So I think I'm going to fix this by saying dispatch queue.main.async. Don't really worry too much about this for right now. Just know that if you get this purple error, you probably need to put something on the main thread. Bang. So once we get our data, we pass it in and it updates. I think we can fix this by saying question mark like this. Maybe get rid of this. Nope. See what this warning says. String describing. I want to provide a default value. I'm just going to provide an empty string for right now. Do the same thing here. Empty string. Oops. Empty string. Empty string. I'm just providing default values for my objects. Oh. 0.0, 0.0, yeah, because these are doubles. 0.0, cool. So now we're getting in all our data. You know, we're getting in our city, our current weather, min weather, max weather, clear sky, and our weather, our main weather, and our weather description. Now the last thing I kind of want to go over is you'll notice this is like super weird weather like numbers. This is actually in Kelvin. So I'm going to show you how to transform this into Fahrenheit. So I'm just going to look up Kelvin to Fahrenheit formula and Kelvin to Fahrenheit. So Fahrenheit equals 9/5 times Kelvin minus 273 plus 32. So I'm going to say function Kelvin to Fahrenheit. I don't think I spelled that right, but this is going to take in Kelvin temp, which is of type double, and it's going to return a double, which is going to be in Fahrenheit. Double. So I'm going to say return 9/5, so 9 divided by 5 times, this is going to be my Kelvin minus 273 plus 32. And here I'm going to say let text equals Kelvin to Fahrenheit. And my double is going to be, you guessed it, this forecast dot list dot first dot main dot temp. Oh. Just fix it, let Swift unwrap this for us, and let's see what we get. 59.648 degrees, and if I did this right, what did we get? 59. So this kind of seems just like difference between the data, but we're right in the ballpark, and you could do the same for your min, max, and your clear skies. And this kind of wraps up my tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Please let me know what you want to see next and how I can make these videos better and easier for you to understand. I know that I might not have been as clear as I could have been. Please note that this is my first tutorial video, but I did hope you guys enjoyed it. Please tune in to the next one. See you guys later.